New York Giants general manager Joe Schoen sounds comfortable with the current quarterback situation. Is that a mistaken judgment? We talk about that and more on today's Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all my written work. And as always, welcome on into my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers, and everybody in between. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, Giant fans, on today's show, General Manager Joe Schoen spoke to the media on Wednesday as part of the annual draft presser preview that he does every year. All NFL GMs do a preview before the draft. And, a lot of people are like, okay, Schoen really doesn't say anything. But if you kind of piece together some of what he does say, you kind of can get an idea of where he's going with certain thought processes and whatnot. So on today's show, we're going to talk about the main ones. We're going to talk about the quarterback situation and a takeaway I have on that based on what he had to say. Then in segment 2, we're going to talk a little bit about Travis Hunter. Even though I don't think the Giants are going to get Travis Hunter in the draft because I think he's going to go to Cleveland, he was still a popular topic of conversation today as part of the presser. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we'll wrap things up with some bits and pieces, miscellaneous stuff that Schoen mentioned as part of his I think he went about half hour, 40 minutes altogether at his presser. So that's today's show. Again, welcome on into everybody. All right, we're going to kick things off with the quarterback situation because that is a very hot topic amongst Giant fans, amongst Giants media. What will the Giants do? Why, above all, are they looking to squeeze in these last-minute private workouts with quarterbacks? They have Shedeur Sanders scheduled for Thursday. They have Jalen Milroe, I believe, on Friday, and Tyler Shuck of Louisville is scheduled for Saturday. So let me start off with what Joe Schoen had to say about the quarterback position when he was asked about it. And I'm going to put for you the part of the quote of what he had to say. He said, with the signing of these two players, quarterbacks Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, I think we put ourselves in a position where I don't think it's mandatory or something that we have to do. Okay, so what he was referring to there is drafting a quarterback. He was asked, does he feel the need to draft a quarterback? Whether it be at number 3, whether it be trading back into the first round, whether it be day 2, day 3, whatever. All right, now let's talk about this for a second. Why Schoen feels that way. And folks, I'm going to go back again to the Matthew Stafford issue, the failed trade for Matthew Stafford, which right then and there told you everything you needed to know about how the Giants viewed the quarterback class. But I'm going to add to that. And all right. So for those of you who maybe are tuning in for the first time, the fact that the Giants were willing to trade away assets and pay Matthew Stafford told us right then and there that Schoen wasn't necessarily crazy about this year's crop of quarterbacks. Now, that didn't mean that he shouldn't do due diligence because, look, when he sits down with John Mara, Steve Tisch, they're going to want to know, hey, have you done your due diligence? Are you sure that nobody in this draft class, will accomplish what we need them to accomplish? So Schoen has to do due diligence. He had to go to the pro days. He had to have these guys in for top 30 visits. He has to do the private workouts. He had to meet with them at the combine, all the stuff that goes into, the scouting process. It's all part of the big process. All right. Now, the other thing that kind of told you, if you weren't convinced with the Stafford evidence, the other thing that told you that the Giants were not really looking to get a young quarterback in here is the fact that they did sign 2 veterans. Now, you would think, okay, you would think it would make sense to, okay, you get a bridge guy in here to be your starter for the coming year, which in this case would be Russell Wilson. And then, you have Tommy DeVito already on the roster. He can be, kind of like your backup guy if you want. And then you slide a rookie in there. And the rookie now, can sit and learn from Wilson. And when he's ready, he could slide into the starting lineup. Very similar to what happened back when Eli Manning was acquired via trade. If you remember, they had Kurt Warner. He kept the seat warm. He was the veteran bridge. Once Eli was ready, had fully acclimated, he took over, and we all know the rest of the story. It's history. All right, so the Giants, by signing Wilson and Jameis Winston, and remember, Jameis Winston signed first, and right off the bat, when we saw the backup money, it was like, okay, he's not going to be the starting quarterback. And for a team that has to win this year, that also told us that, okay, they're probably not going to draft a quarterback to start right away. So the plan kind of, evolved to where Shane set it up to where the rookie quarterback, if they take one, isn't going to play at all this year. Now, in speaking to the media, again, he kind of downplayed it. He kind of said, as I showed you on that last slide, he said, look, if we get one, great. If the value is there, we'll take one. But he didn't seem stressed out over the possibility of the value not being there. And look, you have the number 3 overall pick in the draft, right? So you should theoretically have your pick of the litter after Cam Ward is off the board with Tennessee. The fact that, quarterbacks get overdrafted, all right, teams that really need one, they tend to overdraft them. The fact that the Giants are not looking to do that is another sign in a long list of signs that they are probably not going to take a quarterback in the first round. Now, will they trade up for one? There's always that possibility. But the more I think about it and the more I've heard, I don't think it's going to happen. All right. The reason why is because Shane kind of slipped in later on in his presser. There's always next year, which is when the quarterback class is going to be a lot deeper and there's going to be more options for teams that need quarterbacks. All right. So that being said, why have these workouts, these private workouts, and why are they so late? Why, because there was some speculation that, oh, maybe the Giants are divided over Shedeur Sanders. That's why they're doing a private workout. Maybe they need more information. Folks, Shane put that to rest. All right. Basically, it's part of the process. He pointed out that it was scheduling. He said that many players will not do private workouts with teams until after their pro day because they don't want to have, run the risk of somebody maybe getting injured. And then now that person cannot work out for all 32 teams that want to see him in the workouts. So really, it was a scheduling thing. Now, if you remember, Colorado's pro day was April 4th. Now, I realize as I record this, it's April 16th. So there's been almost 2 weeks that have passed. As Shane said, Colorado was busy. The Giants were busy. And here's the other thing, folks. Sometimes what schools will do, especially when they have a high-profile draft pick, they will set aside a period of X number of days where teams can, quote unquote, make appointments after the pro day to come in to work these guys out privately. All right. So I believe that is what happened with Shedeur Sanders, that, they had the pro day. Then, based on the program, they said, okay, for anybody who wants to come in, you have this day, this day, this day, and this day. And the teams that maybe are in the top 10, they were invited to select if they or elect to come in to work them out. So I think that's how that kind of went down. So, bottom line is there's no conspiracy here. It's not like the Giants are split on Shedeur Sanders. They're going through the process again because Joe Schoen, when he sits with ownership, wants to be able to say, hey, we looked at every option here. We did our due diligence. We are convinced that, this guy is not the guy we want. He also mentioned, by the way, he was asked if John Mara is going to make the trip out to Boulder, and John Mara is not. You would think that if you were talking a franchise quarterback, you would think at least one of the owners would want to go out, right? To get to know the kid, to get to see him again, get to interact with him. You would think that, right? Makes sense to me. I mean, I don't know if that's how the Giants necessarily do it, but I think that's something that they would certainly consider. Now, before we go on to the next segment, just Shane was just asking in general, what is your take on this year's quarterback class? And here's what he said. He said, there's some depth to it. I mean, there's good players for various reasons, different ages, different playtime experience. There's quarterbacks in this draft that will go on and play and be starters in the league. Now, I don't know about you, but that, and I realize this loses something without hearing him say it, but when I heard him say that, he sounded kind of lukewarm on it. Like, there's good players, almost like he was trying to find something good to say about the class. So just adding up all this, I was convinced before that they weren't going to go quarterback at 3. I thought maybe they would trade back into the bottom of the first round to go quarterback, and they still might, but I just don't get that feeling. I don't think it's as strong as it was, especially with the trade back up, because it just sounds like Shane, is lukewarm on this quarterback class. And, let's wait until next year. And then I'll leave you with one final thought on the quarterback situation. Matt Miller actually made this point, and I think it's a very good point. He said that you're better off, if you're not sure about a quarterback, rather than take a swing on anybody that could potentially set you back, you're better off not taking a guy. And for proof of that, folks, what happened with Daniel Jones? The Giants, if you think about it, took a swing on Daniel Jones, both in 2019 and then, a couple of years ago when they signed him to that big contract. And it didn't work out. So where are they now? They are in quarterback, you know what, all right? They have that dead money on their books, and they are now searching for a guy that, had they maybe played it out a little bit better, maybe they would have found their guy. Had they been patient, maybe they would have been able to get the guy that would still be, that would be quarterbacking their team to this day. So all of that are lessons that I think you can take away if you're the Giants about how you approach the quarterback situation. Now watch what happens. Okay. Maybe they take one. Maybe there's a guy that's sitting there that's great value. You can't rule it out, but just all the signs that have come out so far. I mean, they might as well take a billboard out in Times Square that says, yeah, we're not too crazy about this quarterback class. But as with anything, we'll see what they end up doing with the class. All right. Coming up next, we're going to talk about what Shane had to say about Colorado two-way star Travis Hunter, and where exactly would Travis Hunter fit in for the Giants, and could he play both sides of the ball? That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, there's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Game Time's all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkouts. What you see is what you pay. Whether you're looking for tickets to sports events, theater, comedy, concerts, or whatever, Game Time has you covered. So go on and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up tomorrow on the Locked On Giants podcast. Some of you have asked for him. I reached out. He finally has some time for me. He is Bobby Skinner. That's right. I'm going to have Bobby Skinner on the program tomorrow. A lot of you have asked me about him. It's been a while since I've had Bobby on, and he's going to come on tomorrow. And of course, I think a lot of you heard that Bobby is no longer with Talking Giants. He's doing his own podcast now. I believe it's called Giants Nation podcast. So he's going to come on. We're going to talk Giants, get his take on some things. And, Bobby's a cool guy. I've talked to him before. I've had him on the show before, and I think you'll enjoy him if you've never had an opportunity to hear what he has to say. So I'm looking forward to welcoming Bobby on the program. All right, let's talk about Travis Hunter as we get back to what General Manager Joe Schoen had to say during his draft presser preview. All right, obviously, Travis Hunter, a unique player, a guy who can play both sides of the ball. Now, where does Travis Hunter fit in if he should fall to the Giants, which, again, I'm not sure he makes it down to the Giants. I do think Cleveland is going to select him. I'd be shocked if they don't. But if he does, if he is on the board, I think the Giants go with him over Abdul Carter, right? Travis Hunter is a game changer. He can play receiver. He can play cornerback. But Shane did express a little bit of a concern about him playing both positions full time. He cited the fact that, it's a 17-game schedule. There's a lot more snaps, the wear and tear. Travis Hunter is young. He probably can handle it, for a year or two. But as he gets older, he's probably going to have to give up one side of the ball or maybe, contribute to the other side of the ball that he doesn't end up playing here and there as opposed to playing every snap. But here's the big thing that Shane mentioned that kind of caught my attention. He mentioned that they had the 3 wide receivers that they like, Malik Neighbors, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, and they currently like the state of their DB room. So where exactly would Hunter fit in if the Giants were to take him? Well, I think initially where he would fit in would be as in the sub packages on defense, all right? They can move him around, obviously, but I don't think he would necessarily be a starter, at least not initially, even though his talent screams that he should. So he would probably be a sub package type of guy where, maybe even he plays in the nickel, or not the nickel, I'm sorry, the dime. Maybe they have him blitz. I mean, there's any number of things they could do with him. It depends on how creative defensive coordinator Shane Bowen can get. As far as the offensive side of the ball, if the Giants are planning to go 4 wide, then you put Hunter on the field. All right. You're advertising that you're going to pass the ball anyway. So if you have Malik Neighbors on one side and Hunter on the other, good luck to the opposing defense trying to figure out which one to double up, because either one of those guys can break things open. And it would just seem to me that given how Jalen Hyatt has kind of faded from the scene, I mean, I really don't know what his future is with this team, but it just sounds like, based on last year, how his reps diminished, that he doesn't seem to be in the picture for much longer. But of course, he's entering year 3 of his contract. So I think they'll continue to write it out, hope that he gets better. But I think if they take Travis Hunter, Hunter's going to take away even more of the snaps that were maybe meant for Jalen Hyatt. Now, there's also something very interesting developing here where it makes sense to take Travis Hunter, besides the fact that he's a talented, generational talent, if you want to call him that. And that is how the Giants kind of piece together their roster. And by that, I mean looking at the contracts and when the contracts expire. So I wrote down a few things here. On the offensive side, amongst receivers, Wan'Dale Robinson will be a UFA after this year. Darius Slayton, he signed a 3-year deal, but his guaranteed money runs out after 2026. Okay, so what I'm getting at there is you may have openings now if you want to move a Travis Hunter to that side of the ball full time. All right, defensively, Deonte Banks has 2 more years on his rookie deal. That's if they pick up his option year, obviously it'll be 3. Paulson Adebo, again, really 2 years, and then the guaranteed money runs out. So there could be an opening there in a couple years. Cordell Flat, who was supposed to be the starter last year and kind of, couldn't hold down the job. He's a free agent after this year. So just because Shane says, I like the way the room is made up now, that doesn't mean that the room is going to stay the same. You're going to have a lot of contracts ending, if not ending or the guaranteed money running out. So ultimately, there will be a natural opening for somebody like Travis Hunter to slide in and make that job his own full time. And that's going to be interesting, by the way, when we get to 2026 next year, just taking a look at some of this stuff as to what the Giants might do. I think it's going to generate a lot of discussion, but that's still off in the distance. So we're not going to fuss about that too much. But overall, look, Travis Hunter, a unique talent. That's not something we don't already know, obviously. Shane seems to think that Hunter might be better on the defensive side of the ball. He didn't come right out and say that, but that was the takeaway I got. But again, the intrigue of putting him on offense, especially when you go, 4 wides, I don't know that you can beat that. Again, having Neighbors on one side and Hunter on the other, look out, man. That's going to be like a dangerous looking set of receivers, a dangerous offensive formation. So something to keep an eye on if Hunter makes it down to the Giants, which again, I don't think he gets past the Browns, but if he does, I strongly believe he's going to be the Giants pick at number 3. Now, coming up next, we have some leftover bits and pieces from what Joe Schoen had to say that I want to talk about, including whether or not he's going to stay at number 3. So we'll talk about that right after this. Hey, Giant fans, as a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get the job in front of the right people with their deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: adding the hiring hashtag frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And in 1 week, it's going to be draft night. And it's going to be a busy weekend. It always is. But we will finally have the answers to these questions. Mock draft season will be over, thank goodness. And we will have some answers, and we'll have plenty of new stuff to talk about. And just an FYI, for those of you who weren't aware, the Giants rookie minicamp will be 2 weeks after the draft. So not the following weekend, but Mother's Day weekend is when the rookie minicamp will be held. And I, of course, will be out there for both days. And I will have my reports for you, as always. All right, let's talk about some miscellaneous things Joe Schoen had to say. Now, Shane did say that he, he's keeping his options open. He was asked, are you thinking about trading out of number 3? He said he's gotten a couple of calls. So he didn't say which teams. He didn't say what was offered. But there's been some inquiries about teams moving up to number 3. I don't think they're going to move out of number 3. I would be very, very surprised if they trade down. Even though it makes sense because you could potentially get more draft capital, unless that capital includes next year's number 1, I don't think it makes sense. You would be passing up potentially on a Travis Hunter, who again is a generational talent, or an Abdul Carter, who can make all kinds of differences for your defense. So I don't think the Giants do it, but if the offer is what they call a sweetheart of a deal, then I could see him maybe being tempted. But if he does trade down, I don't see him trading down very far in the order, because then you potentially miss out on some of the blue chip players. And I don't think they will do that. All right. Another topic he talked about was, or actually, he was asked about the 5th-year option for Evan Neal and for Kayvon Thibodeaux. Now, Shane said that they had not made a decision. They will probably make it after the draft. Folks, if I had to guess, Thibodeaux's option will be picked up. Neal's will not. Now, let's talk money here. Thibodeaux's 5th-year option, $14.75 million. 751, million. That's not too bad for an edge rusher. Now, some of you might say, well, that's overpaying him because he's not on the level of some of the premier pass rushers in the NFL. I get that. But you want to put him under contract for another year, because if you decide at some point to move him, now he becomes more attractive to the acquiring team, because it's, if you decide you want to trade him by this year's trade deadline, for example, the acquiring team is not getting a 6-week or 10-week or whatever the number of weeks is. They're not getting a rental. They'll know that they have him for the rest of this year and for next year. So that's why, one of many reasons why I could see the Giants exercising Thibodeaux's option year. Evan Neal's would count for $16.685 million. They're not picking that up. I would be absolutely stunned if they pick that up. And there's a couple of reasons. Number one, Neal so far has not lived up to his draft pedigree. Part of that has been due to injuries. Part of that has been due to performance. And now we are at a point now with Evan Neal where he is going to be cross-trained at guard. Now, what's interesting is Shane said that he hasn't spoken to Neal about cross-training at guard. I am assuming, and I know that's dangerous, that maybe Carmen Brasillo talked to him about it. Maybe Brian Dable spoke to him about it. Somebody in the organization must have said something to him. Okay. So Shane reported that he feels confident Evan Neal will do whatever it takes to help the organization. And he also claims that Neal is motivated to salvage his career. So let's hope that that's true. And let's hope that when he does make the conversion over to guard, that it is successful, because that's only going to help him. But that being said, that is also why you do not exercise the option year of his rookie deal. You don't know if that, conversion is going to be successful. You don't know if he's finally shaken off the injury issues that have plagued him for most of his career so far. You don't take that chance, is what I'm saying. So, it's a shame, because Evan Neal, he's got the size, he's got all the tools that you want. The consistency hasn't been there. And again, he was drafted to be a tackle, and doesn't seem to be where his NFL future lies. So let's hope, for everybody's sake, Evan Neal's conversion is successful. And look, if he walks away in free agency, this is where you kind of hope that the Giants draft some young guys. But if they don't, for whatever reason, they do have James Hudson, Storm Forsythe. I think both of those guys are going to compete for the swing tackle job. Both of those guys have started before. So if you lose Jermaine Illuminor, one of them plug in at tackle, and then at guard, hopefully you get an interior guy in this draft class to join Neal and Jake Kubas, Josh Ezeudu. But remember, Ezeudu and like Neal, as of right now, entering the final year of their rookie contracts. So I think an interior offensive lineman is a must-have for the Giants in this draft. Even though they signed Greg Van Roten to another 1-year deal, and Van Roten can play both guard and center, he's getting up there in age. And you want to get young guys in here. Start grooming them, start getting them ready, so that when guys move on for whatever the reason, you have somebody ready to step in. You don't have to scramble. You don't have to go to the free agency route. At some point, and if you look at the Giants' offensive line, their starting offensive line, John Michael Schmitz at center, Andrew Thomas at left tackle, Those are the only two drafted guys, homegrown guys, right? And ultimately, you want to fix it so that you have more homegrown guys on that offensive line, because now you can keep them together. You can let them grow old together and let them gel together. That's one of the reasons why, back in the 80s, the suburbanites were so successful. That's why that line from 2007 to 2010 was so good. They stayed together. You want to build that continuity. And I know that's hard to do now in today's NFL, but if you can try to do that through drafting, that's the way you want to go. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in, making us your first listen of the day. And don't forget, tomorrow I will have Bobby Skinner on the program. I hope you will check that out. So until then, everybody, have a great one, and I'll see you tomorrow.